Ahoy! It's your boy. Today is August 20th, and for some reason I can hear myself in my headphones, which is forcing me to speak very slowly. Unfortunately, this new thing is happening with my recording software where, for some reason, when I fire it up, it just sucks up a lot of computer power, so I get that spinning wheel of death. And so I can't use my mouse. Okay, I think it's over. Let me see if I can turn this off. Check. Okay. Yeah, ahoy. Welcome. This is, I guess, my second installment since we connected last time. I have to be honest, I feel a little ambivalent about making these recordings again because at the end of the day, although I'm kind of in a transitional period, I don't really know that I have a lot to talk about. I mean, for example, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh, it's time to, make this audio record or whatever. And I don't really know what to talk about. I got back from Taiwan like just over a week ago. And although I'm back to work, which actually is its own thing, which I wish I could talk about, but I actually feel it's probably not appropriate to talk about. Other than that, I'm just not doing a lot. I mean, it's the weekend. I just had a 30-minute like boredom nap. I don't know if you ever do that, but there's like nothing to do. And I was just online, like kind of looking at the same shit I've been looking at forever, which is basically, I'm trying to get back to Taiwan. So I'm like looking at language school applications, which, I've already completed a couple of those. I'm also starting to think about grad school and looking at different application deadlines. So I guess the one productive thing I did is I did make a master list of places I want to apply to, what is the application window or deadline, and then looking at a couple scholarships as well. So I guess that's semi-productive. But at the end of the day, it's all kind of things I've kind of looked at in the past. And I was just kind of sitting there, and I was like, well, it's the afternoon, and I don't really, there's nothing productive I want to do. There's nothing fun I want to do. So I just like took a 30-minute nap. And so now I'm doing this. I was sort of saying, there was something about my time in Taiwan where it wasn't that I was a different person, or it's not like Taiwan brought things out in me that I don't possess. But it did bring out things in me that I like about myself that, I know I possess, but for some reason feel really hard to access when I'm here. And I guess actually the sort of cliffhanger I probably left you on last weekend was, by the way, it's weird to talk about that as if that's like actual drama for people who listen to this. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know why people listen to this, but some people do, and so I'll let them decide for themselves what they get out of it. But the point is that one of the last things I talked about was whether or not I was going to go to this music festival, and although I went to the BART station to head to the music festival, when I arrived, there was some kind of kerfuffle or hold up on the track, so I had to wait like 30 minutes. And unfortunately, that was just enough time for me to talk myself out of going. I was just kind of waiting there, standing on the platform, and I was just thinking about the long, drawn-out process of going to the festival. And it was just enough time for me to decide, as I yawn at you, it's just enough time for me to decide I'm just going to go home. And that's exactly what I did. And, it was one of those things that, I don't know, the other things in my life have happened where I have felt this way, but it's like, on the one hand, I leave the house knowing, you're not going to feel great about this process, but once you get there and once you're there, you're just going to be so happy that you didn't stay home. It's kind of, I talk about it like going to the gym. Like the hardest part about going to the gym is just getting on the treadmill. Like, whether it's your gym bag or putting the shoes on or like going for a run. It's just getting out the door. But once you do it, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. And yeah, whatever, that hiccup at the train station was just enough. And as I'm like walking home, I'm thinking, you're probably not going to feel great about this in 15 minutes. Because there's kind of a window of opportunity for leaving, which is it's going to take you X amount of time to get out the door. It's going to take you X amount of time to ride the train into the city. And then there's the bus you got to catch across town to get to the park and get to will call and get your ticket and then sort of make your way to the, I was only there for one band. And, there's, you just got to make your way to the stage or whatever the hell it is. And but there's kind of a window of opportunity because it's like if you leave after a certain point, you're definitely not going to make it in time. So I don't know if that window was an hour or whatever, but I was like, once this window of opportunity closes, you're probably not going to feel great about not going. And so, at the end of the day, that's probably exactly what happened. And I know that the next day, first of all, this is a band that I've seen a couple times, and I don't know why I'm hesitating from telling you who they are, but for some reason, I'm just feeling more ambivalent about saying certain things that kind of tie this record to a certain time and place, and I don't know why that is. That's just where I'm at right now. But they ended up recording some of the sets and putting them online. So I've seen this band a couple times. The last time I saw them, it was not great. The lead, although this is like one of my favorite bands of all time, and I don't want to say for some reason, but the lead singer has a kind of checkered history. They're just kind of very arrogant or whatever. And so often when I see them, although the first couple times I saw them, it was good. The last time I saw them, the lead singer was just clearly intoxicated, very self-absorbed, and it almost like was performing with this. They were just kind of oozing contempt for the audience, and it almost felt like for even having to be there. And not only was it like did it put me out, there were like people around me who were like, wow, I wish this person was like would kind of get it together and like just do the show. So I have to admit that was kind of contributing to like, do I really want to make this trek into the city to see this band? Like, what if it sucks? Because I also have this thing too where, whether it's for some reason I was stopping myself from saying dating, but there's a lot of things that I want to like. And despite the fact that they don't make me happy or they don't. Oh man, I'm sorry. I forgot about my tendency to yawn on this thing. But, despite my, my continued disappointment, it's like I'm committed to wanting to want to like something. And so sometimes when I'm in that place where I'm like, do I go? Do I not go? Part of me not going is I think, well, maybe that's me just kind of finally advocating for myself or finally admitting what I like and what I don't like. And so there's a type of, maybe like me not going is kind of me being in my power or kind of like reclaiming my time for the things that I actually want to do. And, maybe there's something to that. But, again, I wasn't quite sure, how this band was going to show up. So I know that they were going to record the set. So the next day I looked online and I was sort of watching it. And you know what? It was pretty fucking good. And I was like, you know what? You probably would have liked it. Not perfect. I admit the lead singer was kind of doing their thing a little bit. But at the end of the day, it was clear that they played very well and the audience loved it. And at the end, I would have liked it as well. Especially if I had gotten there early, I could have gotten a good spot. Although I've seen them a few times, I've always been kind of far away from the stage. So I even told myself, like, if you go, make sure you go early, just sit through the band who's on the stage before them so that you can be up front when they finally hit the stage. But, well. The crazy thing is they're actually playing again locally, before, like, in a couple months, which is just insane to me. This band, like, never stops touring. I saw them in, like, October in San Francisco. And here we are less than a year away. They're playing again, and they're going to be back, not in the exact same city, but in the same area, like within a couple months. No wonder this guy has contempt. He just can't go home. I'd probably feel the same way. Yeah. But, I think I was just saying, there's something about me not going, which is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When I'm here, it's just so easy for me to stay home and like not go out and do things. And when I was in Taiwan, it just wasn't that way. Like it was for me, it was like imperative that every moment I had, I was like doing stuff. And that makes sense, right? You're traveling. Time is very literally precious. And so you want to make the most of it. But at the end of the day, it's like I start school on Wednesday. The time that I have outside of the rigmarole or the crazy schedule that's kind of coming up is also limited. And yet, for some reason, I'm just kind of content to, just kind of stay at home, piddle around, watch movies, fuck around on the internet. And Yeah, I have to admit, especially today. I don't know that it really hit me, but today was kind of the first day where I really felt like, just kind of bummed out. And yeah, I think that's why I took that nap. It was kind of a boring nap, but I guess in some ways it was kind of a sad nap too. So, yeah. Yeah, in some ways I've actually been kind of living with my head kind of, it's like I have one half of my brain in Taiwan, I have another half of my brain here in the States because I've actually stayed in touch with a couple people that I met while I was there. And we sort of message, but it's like I'm constantly like looking into my phone, and I do it through the weather app, which is, I guess, sounds kind of strange, but really I'm just kind of checking the time in those in that part of the world. So like when I message someone, or a couple times I video chatted with some of my friends there, yeah, I just have to kind of check in and see what time it is there. So I'm constantly kind of thinking about that, and yeah, yeah, it's weird though. Like even as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, when I was there, I was doing X, Y, and Z. I think the thing I sort of is probably logical to think about. Well, one is I need to think deeply, or at least I need to think more seriously about what is it about being here that makes those whatever those things about myself that I like that seem to be easily accessible in Taiwan. Why are those so hard to access here? And I don't know why that is, because visiting Taiwan and who I am while I'm visiting Taiwan is one thing, but um, you know, if I were to spend like a significant amount of time there, my next trip will probably be for 3 months, and that's not an eternity. But at the same time, I'm looking at graduate schools, right? And although I'm looking at graduate school here in the States, if I end up going to grad school in Taiwan, I'm sure that would be a very different experience than if I was just visiting. Because there's a way in which, like I remember when I was, how old was I when I moved to California? I think I was like 22 or something like that. But I was like not in a great place mentally, psychologically, psychospiritually when I was living in Arizona and when I moved to California. And I think I did, or I did think that if I moved to California, that it was going to be this cure all. I had like visited the area, I was playing music, I played a show, and then I had this long drive back to Arizona. It's like 16 hours or something like that. And I remember on the drive back, I had decided that I was just going to pack my things and move to California. And within I think like 3 weeks, I did just that. But within 6 months of moving to California, I completely bottomed out psychologically. And, before I moved, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. It was hard for me to go out. That anxiety was manifesting in all sorts of like kind of embarrassing ways. I was having a lot of gastrointestinal trouble. And I think I just decided if I moved to a different place, that my life would just change drastically. And lo and behold, the first thing I packed when I left, that's a poetic way to put it, the first thing I packed was my problems. And within 6 months, I was actually much worse than I was in the beginning. You know, so and then I mean that began a whole other chapter of like trying to recover or rebuild my life into some kind of normalcy again. But as I'm sort of sitting here and I'm thinking, oh, well, I just want to get back to Taiwan. It's like, well, here you are sitting at home, feeling frustrated and kind of bored, and you're finding it hard to kind of, I don't know, be content, like just with your circumstances. Who's to say that when you move to Taiwan and once you settle into the routine of going to school, and although I don't think I can legally work while I'm there, whatever your life looks like there, once you settle into that routine, what's going to keep it from being the same thing? Once the novelty of the experience wears off, once you've been to all the temples or night markets or whatever the case may be, what's going to, who's to say that you're not just going to fall into the same routine? Oh, yeah. It's funny. It's just so weird to be 38 and just, which by the way, if you're just tuning in and you're hearing me talk about going to grad school and stuff, that number might have surprised you. But yes, I'm 38 years old, and it's just so weird to be this age. And I think when you're younger, you think, oh, I'm just going to have everything figured out. At some point, I'm just going to kind of hit this patch. Because we look at older people and we think that they just have this kind of stasis that they've, maybe after 30 or something, you calcify into the adult that you will be until for the rest of your life. And you just kind of ride that wave until your eventual demise. But Gosh, I mean, if you had told me at, I don't know, 10, that at 38, there would be so many major life questions left unanswered and would still have this huge question mark looming over them, I think it would have been fucking terrifying. And lo and behold, here I am, and that's exactly how I feel. I mean, even as I think about grad school, it's like I don't even know what I want to do, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, one thing I've sort of insinuated, and really the only thing I want to do is I have this kind of a looming creative project kind of hanging over my head that I've been thinking about for like 10 years, which I can't bring myself to do. Which, by the way, it would have been awesome, actually. The last time we heard from each other, I'm almost certain, even though I haven't listened back to it, I'm almost certain that one of the things I talked about was, I have this creative project that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I want to do it, and I just hope maybe by the next time you hear from me that I'll have, either started it or put some work into it, and I haven't. So, that's still sort of hanging over me like the sword of Damocles. But like just needing to be a part of the world. I mean, my biggest frustration right now, and I won't go into details, or we'll see. My work is probably the biggest frustration in my life right now. And although the work that I do is very meaningful, the ecosystem that it happens in is very frustrated. It's in the nonprofit space, and I don't know if it's people in that line of work. It's very easy for them to focus on the sort of macro or the cause that they're involved in, and yet there's something about the operations or the systems level thinking or the operational stuff that's one, it's less attractive, it's less sexy, but it's just harder. If your drive is sort of feelings and human connection and the emotional component of life, thinking about how to just kind of run things from an operational standpoint might be less appealing, or maybe it's just not a talent for people. But not having that taken care of by leadership has just made my life very stressful. And, so as I'm sort of sitting here and thinking, well, to go to grad school you could go to grad school for any number of things that would be interesting, like literature or language study or something like that. But if you really think about the time and the financial investment that graduate school is, there's a lot of pressure to locate something that's going to be that you could very practically yield for a profession afterwards. And frankly, I'm like very embarrassed that, if you ask me, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm 38 years old, by the way, when you're asking me this question. And I said, I still don't know. That's an embarrassing place to be. And, if I told you what I really want to do, which is like, and by the way, what I say I really want to do, because if I really wanted to do it, wouldn't I be doing it? But if you ask me and I told you what my heart and my soul is telling me that I want to do or that I should be doing is this creative project, that is also embarrassing. So that's kind of it, huh? I'm in this like in between where I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know what I want to do in a worldly sense, in a kind of grown-up kind of way of like, what job do I want to do? What do I want to do to make money? And on the one hand, I feel like I want to do this thing, this sort of creative project, and yet I've been sitting on it for almost 10 years now and haven't done anything besides think about it for that long. So where am I? Gosh, I just feel like I'm in this. I mean, on the one hand, I feel like I'm in this like perpetual adolescence, right? Like there's this myth of adulthood, this fantasy of becoming this place of arrival that we're all kind of blooming into, or when we're children, that adulthood is this place that you sort of arrive at, and then you just kind of exist in, for the, I don't know, the second half of your life, or even the majority of your life in some cases. But this is not an original idea, but when you look around, you just realize like most people have no idea what the fuck is going on. Or, it's not that people don't get by in the world in a very practical and pragmatic way. Like they are gainfully employed. They make enough money to pay their bills. They get married. They have children, and those children don't die. They're able to provide for their families. But I think there's a kind of emotional maturity isn't the right word, but there's or a maturation maybe is a word, but there's a type of a place of wisdom or knowing or contentment that I think we're all trying to arrive at that feels still very much that still feels very elusive. And although I will say, I mean, I think when at least most people I've talked to, and it was true of me, when I turned 30, there was a palpable shift in my headspace where I felt like, um, there's a certain type of manic insecurity and kind of fear that at least animated my 20s and actually late teens that I think a lot of people live with and can relate to, that kind of dissipates. So there is a certain type of calming that happens, I think, around 30 years old. But it's like anything in life, which is, uh, every, everything has its own set of problems, right? Like being unemployed is an ecosystem of problems, but having a job is also its own set of problems. Being single has its problems, but also being in a relationship is its own ecosystem of problems as well. And so even though, there's maybe one area of my life that has sort of dissipated and calmed down, and actually when I think about it, I mean, there's so many issues that I've resolved in myself and in my life that I thought were going to be curatives for this kind of unhappiness that I have always lived with. I mean, I have said this before. I probably said it here on this record, and it sounds like a horrible thing to say, but it just feels true to me, which is when I look back on my life, I don't feel like I've ever been happy. And it doesn't mean that I haven't had happy moments, like I loved my time in Taiwan, but even that was peppered with a kind of, just a kind of sadness, And it's not depression. I mean, I've had chapters of my life where I'm legitimately depressed, where it's legitimately hard to function. I think about the moment right before I went to therapy, and it's like my thoughts and my feelings were spooky. Like I was just sad all the time. And every day I woke up, it was like before my eyes even opened, when my brain just kind of clicked on out of that dream state, my first thought, even before I opened my eyes, was like, oh God, like not another one of these days. Like, how am I going to get through? Oh, just like the whatever, so there's just this kind of like defeated, even before you start kind of feeling that sort of attends every day that you're alive. I've never had thoughts of suicide. I'm not going to say thankfully because, that's kind of stigmatizing, I guess, but it's true. I've never had thoughts of suicide, not seriously, but, I've been legitimately depressed. And although I don't have that, I still have this feeling like emotionally, even when things are good, objectively good. I'm employed. My grades are great. I go to a great school. I'm single, but, clearly, I mentioned in Taiwan, I went on like 9 dates with 7 different women. Even I went on a date last weekend. I still connect with people. I have, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to go into specifics, but I have other people in my life who I'm kind of, connected with in a kind of romantic sense. So the point is like, I'm not Quasimodo. I'm not locked in a bell tower somewhere, not able to connect with the world, but it's just like I still feel like I'm like living life with the e-brake on. I'm driving through life and the e-brake's on and I don't even know it. And it's like I was describing I was describing it to a friend as biking in the wind. Like for me, I bike to school. I have a truck, which I've had forever, by the way. I've had my truck for like 23 years or something like that. When I connect with old friends and they ask me, hey, you still have the truck? And I say, yes, they lose their fucking minds. But despite that, it basically just sits. I have to move it every 72 hours, but I never drive it. I drive it like once every 2 weeks to get groceries or sometimes to drop the laundry off at the laundromat, and that is it. But so I bike everywhere. But the worst part of my day, or the worst part about biking, even though there's this last stretch up to the campus that's uphill, that sucks every day. The worst part of biking is if it's windy and you're on flat ground and the wind's blowing at you. And in your heart of hearts, you're like, this should be easy. I should be able to just bike and not have this resistance. But there's this perpetual force pushing against you that's just making this mundane thing like biking on flat ground exponentially more difficult than it has to be. Now, I'm not saying that's my living experience all the time, but I'm saying it's something like that. There is this thing that is keeping me from being content all the time. And maybe I'm trying to force a connection here, but the point is I think this is what's undergirding, if that's a word. There's this thing that's scaffolding this fear that I have of, here I am back in my routine, and for some reason I'm just kind of back to this place where these things I like about myself are hard to access. The kind of go get it, or I can't quite think of the word, but wanting to get after it. This kind of get up, get after it, make hay while the sun shines. Is that the phrase? And do things. Time is precious. Get out and do stuff, not just kind of marinate, in my apartment, just kind of doing the same old, same old. And essentially, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I'm kind of waiting for something to happen. I'm kind of waiting for school to start. I'm waiting. I'm on these dating apps. It's like I'm waiting for the next person to connect with me. I'm waiting for the next thing rather than just kind of creating opportunities myself. When I was in Taiwan, I had a lot of classmates who were very nice, and I liked a lot of them, but they were pretty content to kind of chill. And so for me, it was like if I looked around and nobody was doing anything, I just sort of set off. I had a map, a Google map where I just had all these locations saved that I wanted to go to, and I just picked a place and I just went. And it was always fine, but that was kind of the mentality I had, and yet here I am, just kind of like waiting for things to happen, and so yeah, there's this place I'm kind of returning to emotionally. I'm kind of like living my life with the e-brake on, and it's like, I think the other thing I was thinking about is even when my life is objectively good, right? Even when my life is objectively good, I'm going to a good school, grades are good, all that sort of stuff. It's like there's every chapter of my life, there's something that I think if I solve this aspect, then my life. Then all right, here's what it is. Every chapter of my life, I think that there's like one thing kind of standing in my way. And as soon as I solve that, that's like the e-brake lever. Like because when you're driving in your car and you realize the e-brake's on and you click it, you feel it, right? You just go, oh shit, that's what's been holding me back. And you click it off and now you're kind of, things just sort of click into place. Every chapter of my life, I feel like when I solve for X or when I solve this, then my life's going to be good. For the most ready example was like when I moved to California. I was like, oh, when I moved to California, then I'm going to be off and running. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, when I moved to California, things got a lot worse. But the thing that was like torturing me during that chapter of my life was also like I was not playing music. I was saying, oh, you want to be a musician, but you're not even playing shows. I thought when I moved to California, I was going to be writing songs and performing shows, and that wasn't happening. And so as soon as I started doing that, I thought, okay, well, here we are. We're off and running. And who knows? I'm sure during that whole chapter, it was like, well, once I get X number of streams, or once I play that theater, or once I have that kind of creative accomplishment, that's going to make me happy. And of course, that didn't happen. And then I'm sort of conflating a couple different chapters of my life, but like romantically, you think once I get the girlfriend or once I'm in this type of relationship, that's going to make me happy. And I've had it all. I've had like the really attractive girlfriend where things are sort of hot and heavy. That's not going to make you happy. I've had the girlfriend who, even though things are great and but I'm saying it's a different type of relationship. It's like the person that you could marry. I've had that relationship as well. That didn't make me happy. And so here I am kind of in this transitional phase, or even very acutely today, I'm sitting here and there's a way in which I'm kind of framing this whole thing is as like, well, I'm in the States and I'm unhappy. But if I were in Taiwan, life would be a lot better. But it's like, hold on. In every chapter of your life, there's this thing that you think, oh, if X happens, that's going to be the cure-all. That's going to solve everything. But if I'm being honest, my experience to date has been all of those things are not going to make you happy. I was talking with my friend today. He's my best friend. He's a creative compatriot and friend of mine. And we were talking about this in terms of creative stuff, which is like if you find my music on certain streaming platforms, the numbers are very impressive. I'm in this chapter of my life where music feels very far away. And so like I meet people in school or at work or certain things. And I usually don't tell people that I used to be a musician. But when I was in school recently, I had a roommate who is a musician. And so I felt comfortable saying, oh, I used to do music. And they say, oh, is your music online? And I show them and they're very impressed. And so they start telling other people in the school about it. So I had people kind of coming up to me being like, oh man, I found your music. Like, it's really good. And that's great to hear. But where am I going with this? Oh, that feeling good or maybe this is a better way to say it. The other people feeling happy or impressed by my accomplishment is great. And so there's that. But it doesn't bring me the type of satisfaction that I thought it was going to bring me, right? Like a very extreme example is there are people in this world who it seems, I don't have access to their internal world, but they seem very invested in how other people think about them. And it seems as if they can convince other people of this reality or this image, this sort of lie about who they are. That's actually sufficient for them. That they actually live through the way that people perceive them. Like, for example, it seems to be enough for Trump that other people believe he's a successful businessman. It actually doesn't matter to Trump. In fact, he'll proactively circumvent actually being a successful businessman if it means convincing other people that he is that, despite the reality of his situation. And for most of us, we want to legitimately be the thing that people think we are, whether it's talented or smart or successful in our business. And we would kind of live in perpetual fear of anyone finding out who we really were. Or, even if we did live in a world where people thought we were successful creatively or whatever, if we personally felt, hadn't achieved the type of success that we wanted, then we just would never be happy, right? Now, that's a heavy-handed way of putting it, but that's a little bit of what I'm talking about. And maybe you know this in your own life. I mean, for me, it was like, although I had very impressive numbers on streaming platforms, it was hard for me to feel great about that because most of those numbers came from my versions of other people's songs, which is, it's not that it's not my work, right? It's my version of it. Ostensibly, people are they could listen to the original, but for some reason they're streaming mine as well, at least. And so that's good. But I guess, it didn't, that type of success doesn't validate maybe the things that I wanted creative success to sort of validate for me, which is like, I want people to like me, right? I want people to like my creative output or my creative thoughts or my creative ideas and that kind of stuff. Relationships are like this as well. Like, sometimes you see the person who's with the incredibly attractive partner who is not like, maybe they're not the brightest crayon in the box, or there's no way that this is the type of substantive, meaningful relationship that I think we all kind of want. It's clearly very superficial, and that person seems to like be pot committed to that relationship. It's sad, where we think this person's clearly getting something out of, whether it's the jealousy or desire. I can't quite think of the word here, but the fact that other people desire this person is enough for that person to stay committed to them. Does that make sense? So, but even if you've been in a relationship that's ostensibly to everybody else looks awesome, if you're not happy, like that's going to be a deal breaker, right? For many of us. And so, what am I saying? Yeah, I guess, yeah. Is it too simple to just say that's kind of how I feel? Like, actually, and I'm sorry, but you just got to buckle in. Like, Taiwan is just going to be like the major point of reference for probably just about everything I talk about for the foreseeable future. But like when I was in Taiwan, in the last 3 or 4 weeks I was there, I had some roommates who were Taiwanese, and they were college students, and they were just blown away that I was a UC Berkeley student. Like for them, that was just like out of this world, which is, a little strange. It's not like I go to Yale or Stanford. Berkeley is a great school, but for them, that was just like unbelievable. And, so I guess I'm just trying to say, like, there are things about my life that I recognize, and I'm not trying to diminish, but that other people might even like want for themselves or desire, or, maybe even hearing me say like, hey, I'm gainfully employed and I go to a great school. And there are certain things that you struggle with that I personally in this moment am not struggling with, that you think, God, shut the fuck up, man. Like, what do you have to complain about? But in a way, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Which is, isn't it weird, that the things that we want, the things that we think are going to make us happy, when we have them, they actually don't. And in therapy, I mean, my therapist, maybe this is just my fucked up worldview. Maybe there's something broken about me. Maybe I'm just sort of scarred from my experience or whatever, but it's like, I really am skeptical, that I could ever be happy, because and it's only based on my prior experience, because everything I've wanted to date that I've ever accomplished that I thought was going to make me happy didn't. And so it actually makes this chapter of my life a little more difficult, because here I am being asked to make a decision about what I want to do with my life. And when we think about what we want to do, is it reductionistic to think like the major component or the deciding factor is like, is that going to make me happy? And so it's actually hard for me to feel with any confidence like what I might want to do, because I think I'm also primed to think like, well, even if I think it's going to make me happy, it probably won't. So I'm kind of frozen in place, you know? It actually makes it harder for me to make a decision in this moment, because I think it's just not going to be fulfilling. But anyway, I was talking about therapy. Oh, so as I'm sort of, dealing with this, it's like I even extend this to other people. Like, because I know what it's like to live a life that maybe other people think should be fulfilling or should be happy, and know that I'm not. I kind of assume that about everybody. Like whether it's a celebrity or someone who's successful in business or somebody who tells me they're happily married with kids, I just sort of assume that everybody's quietly miserable. Like, the quote that is, I think it's sort of been, it's gotten new legs because I think like Joe Rogan always sort of pulls it out or whatever. But it's like, the I think it's Thoreau or somebody said, the vast majority of the vast majority of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Right. And it's that this idea that although we seem like we're functioning and happy, most people are just quietly miserable. And that's, I have to admit, that's something that I live with and think about all the time. But, it's like even in my therapy, my therapist is adamant that, hey, man, like a lot of people are happy. It doesn't mean everybody's happy, but there are plenty of people, more than enough people, maybe even most people, who, although their lives are not perfect, even though things crop up that are challenging, maybe even devastating or grievous for a period of time, the loss of a loved one, a diagnosis, losing a limb, personal and professional setbacks, or romantic breakups. There are people who just kind of live generally happy and satisfied with the choices that they made in life, whether it's the person that they married or the career trajectory that they chose. And maybe you're sitting here listening to this and you're thinking, well, of course, dude. But I mean, that actually feels like hard for me to believe. I mean, if I'm already operating from the standpoint that, people kind of superficially appear to be happy, but they're quietly miserable, it's like I even hear that overture. Like that to me sounds like a kind of like a lie that you can tell yourself. You know what I mean? Or yeah, that's just another lie that people perpetuate to sort of convince people that they're happy. But at the end of the day, like everybody's miserable, or everybody's disappointed. That life is somehow this sad dance toward death. Dude, that's like the name of my band. That sounds like an emo record, The Sad Dance Toward Death, dude. And, gosh, damn, man, I mean, that really does like kind of, that is something that I live with all the time. And so, of course, like making, meaningful decisions about what I want the next chapter of my life to be are difficult, right? But here's the real Jedi perspective, though. Okay, so I live with that, right? That's what I think. And yes, it's, probably true that obviously adopting that mentality is making it hard for me to make a decision. But here's the other thing. I'll sort of kind of get to this in kind of a circuitous way, I hope, and not lose my way, potentially, but it's like when you think about someone who's addicted to drugs, and I'm ignoring the genuine biological addiction component. Like once you're biologically addicted to drugs, it's actually your body is actually driving you to do drugs. But I still believe that one of the major components that keeps people in their addiction, despite it making them miserable, is that, drug use, I believe, on one level, a major component of it is that it is fundamentally emotionally avoidant. It is a mechanism through which people can avoid emotionally painful things. It could be the reality of their life. It could be traumatic experiences that they've had in the past. But there's something about that drug use and the euphoria of it when they use, even if the other 23 hours and 30 minutes out of the day are just a perpetual nightmare. There's something about that high that helps them escape something that is even more painful in kind of in a psychological or emotional way. And so, yes, now I'm trying to bring back to what I said, which is there has to be something about, I'm sort of sitting here in this, like, all this confusion, like, oh, well, what do I want to do with my life? What can make me happy? There's something about sitting in that indecisiveness, sitting in that indecision, that even though I'm sitting here saying it's making me miserable, and I think there's something about this, whatever this philosophy is that I sort of have espoused, or that I operationally sort of or operates in my brain, that sort of makes making these types of decisions, these types of major decisions in my life more difficult, that keeps me in this indecisiveness. What is that doing for me? For someone who like can come out of the fog of heroin, like what would they, there's something about the fog of heroin that's protecting them from having to face their childhood trauma, right? The abuse they suffered as a kid. Or even more practically, like people who become institutionalized, right? This is a broad brush, but go with me. When people have become institutionalized, even though they live in a prison where they face, I don't know, like murder all the time, like, there's a constant threat over their life of like prison violence or sexual assault, so they get out and they reoffend and they go back to jail. And it was like they can do all the training in the world, all the professional development while they're incarcerated that they can prepare for job interviews. But when they go out and they face the world, there's something about reoffending and getting back even to that nightmare existence of being incarcerated that is more comfortable than sitting down for a job interview and facing the judgment of a stranger. And so anyway, yeah, that sounds like a very operatic and kind of dramatic thing to sort of call in here, but yeah, this is just this is just sort of a kind of a complicated way of saying I guess I'm trying to explore, what is that indecisiveness that I'm kind of committed to? What is that doing for me? What is this belief that like I can't be happy? What is that doing for me? Because I think even when I'm, it's not like those things shouldn't make me happy. This is what I should be getting to. Moving to California maybe should is the weird word, but let's roll with it. Is a weird word, but let's roll with it. It's like, it should make you happy. California is great. Like, that should be a good thing. Like, not even being creatively successful, but like when I wasn't creating music, like finally making a record or finally playing shows, or as I continued to make music, playing the types of shows that I eventually went on to play, or having the amount of listeners that I eventually would go on to have should have made me happy. But they didn't. Whether you're just dating someone who you're having a fun physical relationship with, or you're in a long-term committed relationship with somebody that you could marry or that you could settle down with, like, that should make you happy. And I remember being inside of all of those situations and thinking, wow, I wish this was enough. I wish this was enough to make me happy. So really, here's the thing I'm driving at. It's not that I think the truth is, it's not that these things are intrinsically empty. There's actually something about me that's, and the crazy part is it's probably born of a type of self-preservation, ironically, even though it seems to continue to make me unhappy. It's probably born out of a type of self-preservation that keeps me from letting those things make me happy, is what I'm trying to say. They should make me happy, but it's like I literally don't let them. And in the same way, the incarcerated person who, from an outsider's perspective, we say, hey, man, you really want to go back to the threat of physical and sexual violence every minute of every day of your life while you're living in a mop closet with another dude you have to shit like 6 inches away from your roommate? You really want to return to that? But at the end of the day, that, at the very least, not that they would ever say this, but the prospect of like having to exist in the real world, and I'm using that in quotes, but having to exist in the real world and like face a job interview, that is more scary to them. And so I guess I'm trying to say, I have enough, or I should say I have this type of insight where I know there's something about, as miserable as the indecisiveness that I sort of continue to live in, whether it's deciding what I want to do with my life, or, that would make so many other decisions in my life exponentially easier today. Or, I mean, really the big one that I've been living with for the longest amount of time is this creative project. There's something about my inability to start it that's protecting me from something. I don't know what it is. There's something about me not deciding what I want to do with my life, which would make, deciding where I lived or where I went to school much easier. The indecisiveness is protecting me from something. And the sad part is at the at the end of the day, and maybe it's true with the incarcerated person too, it really probably is a cliche, like the fear of failure. You're scared of failing. If you decide what you want to do, if you make that claim public or you commit to that path, well, now you can fail. As long as you're kind of, on the shore or whatever, I don't know what analogy to use, but as long as you're just kind of in this indecisiveness, you're just kind of marinating. You're not committing to any one path, so you'll never really fail. I mean, you'll never start. I mean, that's its own type of failure. But I mean, you'll never fail at the thing. No one could ever, if you say, I want to be a teacher, but you never become one, no one can ever accuse you of failing. I mean, yes, we agree that you never really took off either, but the point is that you never failed at X. So if I never start this creative project, well, I never have to live with the failure of setting off on a journey and having to face the fact that I just couldn't do it. Yeah, and that's depressing. I mean, I wish there was a bigger insight than that. But as I've said, I mean, there's nothing worse than finding yourself inside of a cliche. And when you're inside of it, you see all the complexity and architecture and all that stuff that's to it. But at the end of the day, it gets kind of boiled down to something like a fear of failure. And I think, I keep going back to this incarcerated person, but I think that's probably true. For some people, it's much easier to live with the devil they know in a prison cell rather than like face the rejection of going on a job interview and having someone external to you in another part of the world judge you or validate every negative or insecure thought you've ever had about yourself by saying, no, you can't work here, or we don't hire people like you. And I think when it comes to this creative project too, I think there's this fear because I mean, it's not like I've never done anything creative in my life, obviously. So I know the fear of the blank page. I know what it's like to sit there with a song or with a recording or whatever, and even at school. I mean, like with an essay. I feel this at the start of every semester. How am I going to get through this? It doesn't matter how many times I've done it before. Every time, it's like starting over. It's like every time my brain just gets, shooken like an Etch-a-Sketch. It doesn't matter. I could have drawn the Mona Lisa before. It's just, once it's time to reset, everything just sort of gets washed out. And it's like, I mean, I feel this with my language study, right? I've had 2 different language immersion experiences where I only spoke Mandarin for the most part, for like 2 months at a time. And literally, I've been back in the States for like a week and a half, and it's like I already feel like that never happened. Maybe I'm repeating myself, which is going to happen. But I was talking about this in therapy as well. I was talking about, there's this movie, Memento, this Christopher Nolan film. And, you've probably seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's about a guy who has this traumatic injury and he can't make new memories. And so he just goes about his life. He has to take Polaroids and take notes. And ultimately, he has tattoos on his body. He's amassing this body of evidence to find the man who raped and murdered his wife. And so he just sort of goes about his life and he sort of pieces things together. But every 3 or 4 minutes, it just sort of dissolves and he has to start over. And it's kind of funny because I actually watched that movie on the flight home from Taiwan, right? And so I was in 2 places where I remember as I was leaving, and I'm going back to where we started this goddamn conversation, but I was saying, man, I really like who I am here. I hope when I go back, I don't lose sight of this. I hope I'm able to hold on to these things, right? Because I know I'm capable of it. I don't know. I just have to I don't know if it's I just want to be free, man. I just want to be free of whatever this e-break thing is in my life. Whatever this, whatever's holding me back. I know I can be the same person in the States. I just have to commit to that process. And so I was hoping that it just didn't dissolve. right? So that was my claim. And then even when I was flying back from Taiwan, I didn't think about this consciously, but I watched that movie on the plane, right? And so now here I am, now that I'm back, another kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm in that, if it hasn't already happened, I'm definitely in that interstitial phase where like I'm like this dude and I've had this experience and I started piecing the puzzle together. But on a long enough timeline, it starts to dissipate, and all of a sudden I'm frantically looking around for a pen or my Polaroid camera to take a picture so that I don't forget. But it's like sooner or later, in just a couple seconds, I'm going to look up and I'm going to go, where am I? And what just happened? And it'll be like waking up from a dream. And my life is that way. It's like it doesn't matter how much creative success I have. Now that I have some distance from it, it's like I literally live and act as if I've never done anything creative in my life. It's like I'm actually, and I mean this psychologically, I'm back in that place I was when I first moved to California and I hadn't like written a song or played a show in like 2 years. And it felt like this Herculean effort to even put pen to paper. And it's just very weird to have done everything that I've done and to be back in that place. And there's a microcosm of that is like going to the music festival. Here I just had this 2-month experience where I was just like doing it all. I was like traveling. I was trying weird food. I was putting myself out there. I was going on dates. I was like, I was very involved academically in my coursework and all that sort of stuff. And yet just give it a couple days and I'm back to this. I'm like this hermetic house cat who like stays at home. And there's things I enjoy. I'm watching a great film right now called Our Little Sister, which is great. So, I mean, there's things I do, or even like recording this. Those things are fine and fulfilling. But there's 1,000 other things I wish I was doing with my time that I this feel very hard to do. And, what's that about? I mean, and there's something about, and I feel bad only gesturing to this, but again, I just don't think it's appropriate to talk about. But it's like even in my job right now, I'm very frustrated with it. But it's like I live as if I'm stuck there, right? Like as if I couldn't find another job, right? As if, hey man, you've been in school for the last X number of years, you have a great pedigree, you have all these new skill sets, and you're more mature. And by the way, you're also taking with you all the experience that you've had at this job that you're currently at. Why in the world couldn't you find something else? It's almost like a I don't know. I'm picturing like this is going to sound weird, but it's like I'm picturing like an old dirt road that like ox carts have like ridden on for years, and so like there's like the grooves are kind of carved into the dirt, and it's like once I get in that track, once my wheels kind of lock in, it's like I act like I can't like break free of that. Anyway, I'm now reaching for metaphors that I don't even need. I've already expounded on this topic enough over the last hour. I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So the Memento analogy was enough. I sort of live like this dude with perpetual amnesia, and no matter what happens before, I just sort of like forget about it and I act like I can't do it again. And but again, the thing that the big mystery, and maybe we already solved it with fear of failure, but there's just something about that indecisiveness. And in a way, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie Memento, literally don't listen to this. Watch the film. But the plot twist of the movie is that he does it to himself. I forget about that part. That's the part I really need to remember. He does it to himself. He creates the mystery, right? The plot twist at the end is that he's always looking for John G to kill. He's killed many John G's. Oh, dude, I'm telling you, man, this movie's fucking brilliant, right? That's how you know you're watching a real filmmaker. You're just watching this movie and the story itself is cool enough, but once you realize the actual psychological implications of what you're watching and the way that you relate to it on a super deep level, that's when you're dealing with a master filmmaker. But dude, he does it to himself. He tells himself, oh, if only I kill John G, my life will be fulfilled. I'll have done my life's work. He's killed John G over and over again. But he destroys that success because he needs to give his life meaning. It's the mystery It's the pursuit of the mystery that gives his life meaning. Oh, god damn, dude. And here I was, I was sitting here thinking this conversation is a fucking nightmare. Why do I even do this to myself? And maybe you're bored as shit, but I'm telling you, man, that was all I needed. That little revelation right there was everything I needed to remind myself why I do this for me. You're going to have to decide for yourself why you listen. But why the reason I record it is for that. Wow, man. And so here's the thing, right? I'm even sitting here thinking like, wow, what a great connection. But I guarantee you, the next time I hit the record button, we're going to be having the exact same conversation. And if you've been listening to this record for a while, for all I know, I've had this conversation 1,000 times, right? So anyway, let's call it there, right? If I keep going, it's just not going to get much better than that. So it's good to be back doing this. Like I said, moments like that are very fulfilling for me. But again, you're going to have to decide for yourself why you listen. So round 2, good to be back in the saddle. I hope I keep it up. I'm telling myself, hey, once you start, you got to do at least another 100, right? So if that's true, I'm not making any promises to myself or to you, but that's kind of the way the cracker crumbles for me. I sort of sit. I haven't done this for a while, but now that I'm back at it, I guess I'm just going to keep doing it for the next 100. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your time, and ciao for now.